There is a common speculation that language exerts significant influence over the primal region of our brain, that which governs our thoughts and behavior, granting language a power that extends beyond mere words. Now picture a scenario where an individual gains access to those primal regions of the human brain, crafting a distinct language model designed to disseminate an ideology, say, genocidal tendencies among a targeted group or even an entire nation. Our protagonist, Captain Clavis Shepard, is immersed in probing this very matter and faces the prospect of being indicted due to his discovery. The gravity of his revelations cannot be underestimated, as they compel each person to confront their own conscience. Ever since the 2001 terrorist attacks on the United States of America, security has become the focus of the government. And when the 2015 nuclear explosion at Sarajevo happens, privacy has become a luxury. The American government has strictly employed surveillance cameras and biometrics to monitor people. The citizens have learned to compromise their freedom for their safety. They don't want to become the second Sarajevo, becoming victims of homemade doomsday bombs. The years following this disaster have been dotted with several genocides among third world countries. And so the American government takes the lead to investigate these tragedies. This leads them to Georgia in 2020, where Clavis and 3 others are sent to eliminate a specific target. When he gets there, he only sees the country's general, listening to classical music and seemingly in a trance. He grabs the general's hands and questions him about the American who's supposed to be with him. He simply says he's gone, leaving them a note saying that his work there is done. Then he becomes confused about the state of his nation. Why had he allowed fighting and massacre to happen among his countrymen? They were a peaceful nation, so how did they end up here? Before he can do anything, someone shoots the general. The one responsible is Alexander, one of Clavis's backup. Alexander looks lost and traumatized, his eyes unfocused as if he's about to have a breakdown. Clavis doesn't hesitate and shoots his comrade twice in the face. Then he disposes of the body and escapes as foreign soldiers barge in after hearing the exchange of bullets. A few days after this operation, Clavis and Williams receive a call from Colonel Rockwell, ordering them to attend a briefing at the Pentagon. There, they meet Erica Sales, a representative of the private company Eugene and Krupps, which deals with military-grade ammunition. It looks like their superiors are having some agreements with the said company, especially with the presence of the Senate Majority Leader. Inside the briefing room, Colonel Rockwell informs them about the incident with Alexander during the last operation. He relays that Alex experienced PTSD because of some malfunction in his device they all call BEAR. It's an acronym for Battle Emotion Adaptive Regulator, which manages their emotions when they're in the field so they can carry out their orders more efficiently. Rockwell shares this because both Clavis and Williams, and everyone else in their unit, are equipped with this neurologic function. He assures them that the experts have addressed the malfunction so it won't happen again in the future. The other officer also tells Clavis that his actions then are ruled to be justified self-defense, so he won't be facing any serious consequences. Another reason they are called is because of a new mission. One of them turns on the screen which shows a picture of a man. His name is John Paul. He used to be affiliated with Intermedia Group Inc., a PR firm that handles image strategies for countries on large corporations. John Paul's chief task at that time was to solicit corporate clientele and get them to commit their capital to developing countries. The firm gained fame by helping poor countries boost their economies. John Paul was the man behind all these, and thus he became a public advisor to several countries. The thing is, the genocides also happened around the same time. The CIA's intelligence was only able to pin him as the perpetrator when the conflicts intensified. It seems unreal that only one man is behind all these atrocities, until Clavis remembers the ramblings of the general on his last mission. Perhaps there's something more to this than meets the eye. Their mission is surveillance and assassination. They need to stop John Paul before he can incite another rebellion in another country. With that, the 2 soldiers go to the Czech Republic. According to intel, he was spotted there 3 days ago and made contact with someone named Lucia Skrupova. It turns out Lucia was his mistress and he was with her during the Sarajevo incident. John Paul's wife and daughter perished in the tragedy, after which he laid low for 6 months before emerging again and working for the PR firm. Since then, his whereabouts have been unknown. Lucia is their only link to finding this elusive man. Lucia is a private tutor who teaches the Czech language to foreigners. Clavis poses as Charles Bishop, a marketing director who transferred to Prague. He meets with Lucia, and immediately he knows that she's an attractive and intelligent woman. During their conversation, a seemingly innocent topic comes up, which will soon become integral in Clavis's hunt for John Paul. She shares with him her research about how language can have certain effects on human behavior. As an example, she summarizes how Creole languages developed over time. It's because of the innate ability of the human brain to generate grammar. It's akin to a body organ, much like a hand or skin, an organ that can inherently give birth to language. The two spies study the information they have gathered from Lucia. So far, all they can confirm is that John Paul was really there days before. It may take them a while to see progress in their stakeout, but soon they're going to have some actions in their mission. The next day, Clavis discovers someone is stalking him. He immediately confronts the stalker and asks him who he is. But the man says he's nobody. It can be a cliché line from another spy. But later that night, they are confused to find that the man's record consists of multiple persons' biometric data. While they contemplate the inconsistencies, Clavis receives a call from Lucia. She invites him on a date, so the next day he comes with her. She admits that she used to be a mistress of a man whose family perished in the Sarajevo incident. Clavis pretends to be surprised by this, but he takes note of Lucia's remorse for the fact that her boyfriend was with her instead of his family. Then, abruptly, she changes her mood. She takes him to a bar and introduces him to the owner, Lucius. Lucius is an intellectual man who explains to Clavis how his club offers some semblance of freedom for the youth, despite the terrorism that plagues the world. While drinking his beer, Clavis commends Lucius for his passion and vision. Just then, Lucia pulls him out of the bar. As they ride a tram, Lucia becomes emotional again about missing her boyfriend despite being ashamed of what she's done. Suddenly, she turns on him and tells him she knows that he's after John Paul, that he's a special agent who's in pursuit of the man she loves. Before Clavis can do anything, he notices some people that are about to board the tram. Instinctively, he knows they are following him and Lucia. So they leave the tram, then he sends a message to Williams and pulls her somewhere safe, leaving a few traces so they can easily be found. But they are already cornered. As he prepares to fight, Clavis experiences sudden pain all over his body. He tries to maintain consciousness as she hears Lucia apologizing. She says she was only meant to bring him to the bar. He tries to tell her to run, but another man's voice cuts him off, saying there's no need for that. Then Clavis finally closes his eyes. When he wakes up, he is face to face with the elusive man who has caused genocides all over the world, John Paul. Without pause, Clavis asks him several questions about his involvement in countless atrocities against humanity. John Paul is gracious enough to tell him what he asks for. At first, John Paul started as a researcher looking for patterns in human language. After publishing his paper, the Pentagon approached him and gave him a DARPA scholarship. Along with this is an all-out access to every resource he can find about his research. That's when he discovered that genocide had its own grammar. Despite differences in cultures and geography, the grammar can be inherently understood at a deep structural level. This grammar presents itself as a pattern in the media and political climate of a country. And when this pattern is detected, it inhibits the part of the brain that affects virtue and judgment and causes biases in opinion. Clavis is reminded of the organ that Lucia talked about. As a gift, John Paul admits that he used a specific grammar while talking to him. It's not genocidal, but simply a way of stimulating a specific ancient brain function, and with that, Clavis passes out again. When he wakes up, John Paul is gone. He busts out of the room he's in and runs along the hallway. He walks out of a door and is surprised to find himself inside the bar he was in earlier. This time, it's empty. He feels the painful sensations again as he gets surrounded by Lucius, the two people who stalked him, and others. One of them is holding the controller for his painful simulation. It turns out, Lucius has put some chemicals in his beer earlier that, when activated, cause severe shocks of pain. He tells Clavis two important things. First, John Paul is his client, and he only did what he asked for. And second, he and the others are called the Uncounted. They use biometric data from the dead as their ID to escape the strict security surveillance the world has imposed. This explains why Clavis and Williams can only find inconsistent data from their stalker earlier. Lucius says that doing such is their compromise for experiencing their freedom. They couldn't care less about the genocides happening in other places. After all, they choose to see what they want to see. Lucius plans to eliminate Clavis, But Williams comes in time to rescue his partner and terminates everyone in the club at the same time. Weeks after this, Clavis recovers from his encounter, but he still thinks about Lucia and where she could be. Colonel Rockwell approaches him about another assignment that is related to John Paul. Clavis will lead a group of special forces to infiltrate a camp along the Indo-Pakistani border. 8 insurgent leaders are to be arrested for their crimes against humanity, especially since they used minors as their foot soldiers. It's believed that John Paul is with them. He is to be brought back alive to the United States. Clavis starts his tactical counselling after this briefing, and soon he's with his comrades flying high above their target location. Their unit's main goal is to eliminate dangers to humanity, so it follows that they use only the best gadgets and ammunition during their operation. They are so advanced in technology that the rifles and guns used by the miners look like toys in comparison. Soon the location is filled with gunshots mixed with desperate wails and cries from children who know only one thing: pull the trigger. Each soldier of Clavis's unit is equipped with the enhanced bear, which allows them not to feel any remorse as they blow a child's head. Soon they all corner the 8 leaders, as well as John Paul. Their aircraft fetches them, and in a few minutes they are on their way to the Mumbai base. Clavis takes the opportunity to talk to John Paul and asks where Lucia is. The villain only laughs at him, saying that Clavis is willing to shoot children just to look for a woman. The soldier says he's only doing his job, which is exactly what John Paul uses against him. A phrase that paralyzes the human conscience. No one realizes that it's really up to an individual's choice, but because the part of the brain that acts on virtue and morality is shut off by this phrase, anyone can have the perfect excuse to carry out savagery and brutality against one another. In this case, the bear implanted into the soldiers is not much different from the genocide grammar. Their conversation is cut short when their pilot detects another aircraft tailing them. The second vehicle sends 2 missiles, which send theirs spiraling to the ground. Clavis and Williams survive, but their comrades are not so fortunate. This incident marks their unit's first defeat in history, but at least they didn't go down without a fight. The soldiers fought back, and hard to the point where corpses had to be stitched back together just to be identified. The leaders they're transporting have all been eliminated, while John Paul has escaped. This incident also brings an ugly truth to the surface. The mercenaries who attacked them were previous soldiers who were marked either killed or missing in action, and were contracted by Eugene and Krupps. They found out about this operation through the Senate Majority Leader, who acted as their mole in the government. It's safe to assume that the reason they want John Paul is to keep him inciting genocides. In this way, more ammunition is sold by the company, and anyone who's in on the plan can have their share as well. Profit and capitalism at its finest. Despite this failure, Clavis and his team are persistent in locating John Paul. He reports to his superiors and the experts the things Lucius and John Paul told him about hiding their ID using dead people's biometrics. They use John Paul's analytics against him. By identifying a pattern of movement different from the normal ones, along with irregular aliases and identification, they are able to infer the most probable country where he could be. And perhaps, as Clavis is hoping for, where Lucia is as well. He arrives at the shore located in an African country. In the dead of the night, he stealthily infiltrates the mansion that's heavily guarded. There, he finally hears Lucia's voice. He sees her entering a room on the 2nd level. He follows and enters it, only to find it empty. On the table lies a letter and a small notebook full of incomprehensible codes. From it falls a microSD. To his surprise, John Paul speaks from behind, saying that the microSD contains a grammar of genocide text editor. Clavis attempts to reason with John Paul about the significance of the grammar of genocide in today's world and why he's doing it. As an example, John Paul relays the evolution of different ways humanity deals with food shortages. If there's a small population, people will accept cooperation with each other to preserve the resources. But what if the community is larger than the resources? Then it dawns on Clavis that the grammar of genocide is the humanity's evolutionary way to even out the population and stabilize resources. As a result, an emotional masking is developed to compensate for the loss of people. And through language, this is clearly but subtly present by saying, "It's my job," or "I have no choice." But Clavis is still not satisfied with this answer. John Paul still hasn't justified why he's doing it. At this point, Lucia comes out, crying that John Paul's doing it as revenge for losing his family. She still carries the guilt of what had happened. But he corrects her, and he gives the most horrifying explanations they've ever heard. John Paul says he's doing it to protect what he loves, which is his country. Since the 9/11 attack, the USA hasn't been the same. Stricter surveillance has been imposed, which has sacrificed many people's privacy. But in return, the citizens enjoy a certain level of freedom unlike others. And along with this freedom is choosing to be ignorant of other people's plight, so long as they themselves are free. It's choosing what they want to see. On the other hand, stricter surveillance doesn't stop terrorism. So, in John Paul's mind, one way to mitigate future violence in their country is to cause it first to others. That way their country is safe, away from the hate and cruelty of mass killings in other countries. Clavis is speechless for a moment. He finally understands that this is not one man's work. John Paul is simply a puppet of a larger entity that wants total control over security, even at the expense of millions of innocent lives. Lucia orders John Paul to surrender to Clavis, saying that the only way to atone for both of their sins is to reveal the truth of the world. It will be hard, but the citizens must understand the weight of the freedom they are choosing. Then, without any warning, Lucia gets shot by none other than Williams. He has followed his partner to make sure that the operation will be successful, but Clavis goes against his order. He saves John Paul and runs with him, leaving Williams to perish in the explosion. The two arrive under a lone tree in the meadows. It's almost dawn. John Paul convinces Clavis to be the one to reveal the truth to the whole world. Nobody will listen to him, since he's someone who's been called the Lord of Genocides. It's a burden that Clavis must carry, and carry alone. The soldier toughens his resolve. He shoots John Paul on the forehead and waits for the dawn to come. This brings us back to the start of the movie, where Captain Clavis Shepherd is being held on trial for his revelations regarding his government's involvement in worldwide mass genocides. He has plunged America and her freedom-loving citizens into an abyss of truth. If there's one thing he learned from John Paul, it's to have the guts to bear the responsibility of so many lives on his shoulders. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.